This is a dangerous groups that we're dealing with now. It was a nightmare.
Flight 807, you're clear for landing. Runway 7, Bravo.
All personnel report to the nearest tornado shelter. This is not a drill.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, I'll give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it in. So let's waste no time, folks. Ooh, yeah. Let's get to it. Story number 1. How is the local car business doing? The car market has been taking a huge hit in the microchip shortage era. The days are up and the numbers are up. This means that the local used car market has been making some headlines. Now, due to inflation, people are feeling the strain when it comes to gas prices and auto parts, period. Now, the local car market is on alert as dealers scramble to fill their lots during tax season as we get closer at the income tax time. Now, demand is high for used cars, so prices may also be increasing according to one local Vindicator article. Now, they're saying that the average cost for a used car in Detroit is about $29,000. That's why story number 1 made it in this week. Story number 2, Girard considering an art center. Girard made headlines. The city of Girard made some headlines as the city considers adding an art center onto the Shannon Road High School. Now, the president of the board, Mark Zuppel, says supply chain issues brought on by COVID-19 shutdowns is what's causing the delays in their considerations. Now, overcapacity has prompted the school to consider building a bigger auditorium, aka the art center. Now, there have been a lot of new and old stories in circulation about how important the arts have been in the development of youth all across the world and all across the country. That's why story number 2 made it in this week. Story number 3, getting to know the Valley's meat business. If you didn't know we had one, we do. Now, the local meat market has been busy as Ohio farmers try to keep up with the demand. Now, this story made it in because of the current conditions that farmers have had to deal with to keep up. Now, although the farming business and when it comes to meat is booming, finding qualified workers is also still a problem. Now, the meat packing industry made major headlines in 2021 when the virus first broke out due to a worker shortage, but now things seem to be picking back up. Now, the aim from the Biden administration now is to make sure that prices don't get too high. The story is still developing. That's why story number 3 made it in this week. Story number 4. Old school South Field House. They're trying to get it off the market. The old South Field House. They're trying to get it off of. They're trying to sell it. Now, South Field House has it was set there idle for over 15 years. It's been a long time. Now, this shows that the standstill in making some progress on that building is showing that many still unusable buildings in Youngstown remain a problem. Now, the city has not found a buyer yet, but does seem to have some people who are interested. The dilapidated surrounding area could be a small portion of the concern on why they're having some delays. Who knows? People are impressed when they see a lot of activity, but when there's no activity, people don't want to risk it. That's probably what they're having a problem with. Now, the property has taken a hit, but hasn't gone to complete waste because the field is still being used by Valley Christian. They're using it for games and for practice, according to a local Vindicator report. Now, with the still growing demand for community buildings to rent out and have events, this is yet another story showing how hard it has been for the city to move forward with putting old properties to good use. And that's why story number 4 is such a big headline. Big headline. Story number 5. Why are people stealing? Big question. Stories about people stealing have been in quite a few headlines lately. In a city fighting to get over the poverty gap, most recent stories about robberies and the constant cycle of crime has continued to stay in the headlines. Now, crime has kept a number of businesses from expanding locally and has also kept negative news about the inner city in circulation. If Youngstown wants to create a promising future, the city will have to change the growing culture of violence and crime-riddled stories in the news. Now, the city will also have to focus on its working class as well. Now, businesses are looking for they're looking for quality workers, and they're looking for a drug-free workforce. And at the moment, current news shows that that seems to be lagging locally. Detroit set an example by decreasing their crime, and their school system seems to be getting back on track. So maybe they will have a roadmap for Youngstown to follow. That's why story number 5 made it this week. Story number 6. Michael Ruley's seat is being tested, but why? His Senate seat. Now, the political arena has got nasty, folks, if you haven't noticed. Bob Hagan has decided to not only take shots at current Senator Michael Ruley, but he has also decided to run for his seat in the next election. Hagan has served 28 years in the state legislature. Now, and he's also served 10 years in the Senate, added on to 8 years in the House. Now, Ruley has been serving as an outsider with business knowledge at Ruley Brothers and will be seeking another term. He's been putting up the image of an outsider, and that's why this story is made in, because he's trying to change the way things are done in Congress. But this is why story number 6 such a big headline in the Senate. Story number 7 of the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside, especially in Ohio. Story number 7. I got to get it out. Top 2 in the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Ohio is still in a fight to make COVID-19 progress. COVID-19 hit the news in mid-2020, folks, and it is still in top headlines into 2022. Now, locally, the fight against mandates is still a topic of discussion as cases continue to fluctuate and hospitals remain crowded. The challenge now is trying to get things under control. Now, one front page article starts off by noting that 1 in every 55 Ohioans have been diagnosed with COVID-19 in less than 2 weeks. The stats are also a concern because they don't seem to be improving. Now, every day it's looking like COVID-19 is here to stay, and there's not much we'll be able to do about it but work on our own immune system and try to stay healthy. That's why story number 7 made it to the top 2 this week. Local. Big headline. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made in this week. I got these stories, man. You want some sandwiches and some stories at the same time while you wake up in the morning? That's what I got, bro. And that's what we gonna do. All right. Story number 8. I got it. You're almost there. Many local schools, including YSU, have been making teaching adjustments because of COVID-19. Now, schools have been going through hell. Literally hell. Now, on January the 11th, YSU made front page news yet again while trying to adjust to the new norms of teaching through COVID-19. Austintown, Fitch, Youngstown, and Newton Falls also made headlines because they've been deciding to go back to remote learning. Teaching just isn't the same as it used to be, folks, because the hunger to learn is being tested every day. We got to be hungry to learn. YSU was set to go back to in-person learning on the 10th day of January, which was the following Monday, last Monday. Now with on Sunday it'll be this Monday. It was the one that just passed up. Now with they were supposed to go back with certain protocols that were put in place to try and continue contain the spread of the virus and keep students healthy. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines. So don't you go anywhere. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. You're the Mediator with me, Brian West. Ooh, yeah. Ooh.
What does Method8Inc.com Media Center have that I need?
Small prints, event consulting, photography, business consulting, technical consulting, entertainment consulting, fundraising advice, event videography, movies, news, publishing, media, books, entertainment, acting, broadcasting, public relations, access to the visual and performing arts, ink and black ink refills, audio recording, graphic design, theater, minor computer and cell phone repair, and they're located at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. every Monday through Friday. The list goes on and on.
Method8Inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
Oh yeah! And yes, we are chipmunks.
Living, you love me. Dying, you save me. Buried, you carried my sins all away. Rising, you justify. Forget me forever. One day he's coming back. What a glorious day. Send it on down, Lord. Send it on down, Lord. Lord, let your Holy Ghost come on down. Send it on down, Lord. Send it on down, Lord. Lord, let your Holy Ghost come on down. Hey.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, I remember like yesterday I was at a school. I think I was in junior high school. That's when they had junior high school. And I was in African American history class, and and she was teaching about Martin Luther King Day and the civil rights movement. And I'd interrupt the class. I said, excuse me. I don't mean to interrupt the class, but Mrs. Irvin, I'm a bit confused. And she looked at me. She said, Brian, what's wrong? And I said, why did they kill somebody who was trying to do the right thing? And she looked at me and she says, it was kind of complicated, Brian. You know, I'm a little kid. She says, I said, well, why did they kill the man? It seems like he had good intentions. He didn't seem like a criminal. You know, he wanted to be peaceful. She said, Brian, it's a little complicated. And I didn't want to involve anything, because you got to think, I'm a kid. I don't know anything about race or anything. My mother didn't teach me all this stuff. So she kept beating around the bush. And I was a bit confused at the time. You know, I said, this man didn't do anything wrong. And I asked her, I said, there are people who do bad things every day and get away with murder, and they don't seem to get punished, but this man got executed. She sat down and she talked to me about Dr. King, and she explained it, but to this day, I'm still a bit confused. Why kill somebody who had good intentions? Think about that this holiday, this Martin Luther King Day, and try to be grateful and keep the dream alive, and try to reward those who do good. And think about that, you know. Think about the goodness of people. Do not judge them by the content of the character of their skin, but by the content of their character. I'm sure you get the picture. Well, folks, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1, the COVID surge of the problem solvers. So there's a surge of problem solvers in this COVID surge period. Now, with so much new data coming in about COVID-19, there is a new argument taking place asking the question of, did we overreact? Now, some people say yes, we did, and some people say no, we didn't. But medical professionals are doing everything to control the narrative and leaving other people who feel that they have some solutions out of the picture. That means they're getting excommunicated, knocked off social platforms and everything. Now, the people that they are leaving out are finding ways to be heard, and they feel that they should be heard because they're being shut out of the strength of dialogue and debate, which this country was founded off of. Now, this story is still developing. So, story number 1 made it this week. Story number 2. How did domestic terror become a problem? The United States continues to have a crime problem, folks. That's a fact. America also has an incarceration problem. Lock up a lot of citizens in this country, including Dr. Kings. Now, in the information age, people have found out that the justice system is not only brutal, but it has also not been a friend to innocent people. So, the question now is, how did domestic terror become a problem? This one question stems from a history of brutal and savage is the word, outcomes. That means there's a lot of brutality in this country, in the world. I mean, that doesn't mean it's bad, but there is some stuff that goes on that will really shock you. Now, domestic terror is nothing new, folks. The FBI and many of the investigative units that we see today are in existence because of America's rich history with crime. Now, not only has domestic crime evolved, but it has somehow seeped into a lot of people's everyday life, and lawmakers are trying to fight. They're trying to fight it with oversight and legislation. Now, this story is still developing, and at the moment, there are few solutions to this one question of why does America have such an incarceration problem. That's why story number 2 made it this week. Story number 3. Will aid money fix Afghanistan? Probably not, but it probably will help for a little while. The Middle East is still a problem if you have not known. It's been a problem for a while. Iran is on the verge of obtaining a nuclear weapon, which is they're trying to prove. They're saying that there's proof now. And Afghanistan is on the brink of total collapse now. And money has been pouring in, and every day to the country trying to give some aid over there. Every day, the U.S. withdrawal remains a topic of discussion, and we got out of there. Now, with few boots on the ground, there is still a lot of stories in circulation about what is actually going on in Afghanistan under Taliban rule. Now, this story is another story that is still developing. That's why story number 3 made it this week. Story number 4. Is debt really the problem? Big question. Economists are noticing something about how we Americans spend our money every day. Now, one minute the market is hot, and then the next minute it's down. But what market analysts have noticed is that when people have money, we spend it. They spend it. We all spend it because it's money. So is debt really the problem? Now, most economists are now finding out that if people do not consume and produce, the market tightens up. Now, with a lack of production lack of production when we had shutdowns, people kept consuming, which has resulted in what we see now. Now, high demand is causing inflation. So the only way to balance things out is there has to be mass production to meet that demand. Now, debt is only a symptom of less cash flow to pay down debt. So when you have debt, that means that you're spending because you're not bringing in enough to pay the debt. Your debt to income ratio is high, and you can't balance things out. Now, debt is also a symptom of minimal savings. That means you've leaked out all your savings to even things out. Now, the key to this story is cash flow, thus proving that debt is not the problem. Cash flow and gross domestic product is. Now, if we can somehow balance things out with work, cash, money, and wages, the economy should be able to rebound. But with COVID-19 still lingering around, this has been a problem. Well, folks, that's why this story made it in this week. Well, folks, those are our top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made us this week. I'll be right back with the top 4. So don't go anywhere. You're the Mediator, me, Brian West. I'll be right back. If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. And go to the website. It's method8inc.com. Method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, I'll tell you another story about when I was in elementary school, and this was our first Dr. King Day. This was my first time ever experiencing something like this, and we had to go into the auditorium, and we had to march, and Then we had to sing, we shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. And one of the girls in back of me when I was marching, she smacked me on the back of my neck, said, "Black neck, pow!" I dropped my whole thing. I said, "Oh God!" I couldn't believe it. She smacked me right on the back of my neck. I was upset. And I looked at her and I said, "Why'd you do that? Why'd you smack me? We were supposed to be marching in peace with nonviolence." I got upset. I said, "I don't have an insurance policy. I don't want to end up like Dr. King." I was traumatized, folks. I was conflicted by the fact that I was nonviolent, and this was all we had prepared for. We had worked on this play for days. That's when I learned the importance of not only the Martin Luther King Day, but the importance of why we don't need to drop it like it's hot, but pick it up and be peaceful, baby. Drop it like it's hot. We don't need it. We need to be drop it like it. We need to be peaceful. Whew. Well, folks, that's my story. What an exaggerating and a loving story it was, because when she smacked me in the back of my neck, I taught her something about peace that day, and we joined hands together and we sung songs. We shall overcome someday. Well, that's my story. Let's get to it. Story number 5. How we can win the COVID-19 war. And someday join hands together and sing Kumbaya, and we shall overcome someday. Falsetto, baby. Well, folks, the data is showing that practicing good health habits plays a huge part in winning the COVID-19 war, the war on COVID-19. Now, in the process, we're also learning about what role vaccinations play in the still evolving information age of viruses and diseases. Now, how people seem to be winning the COVID-19 battle is through safe and effective health habits and old remedies to strengthen their immune system. That's why story number 5 made in this week. Big headline. Story number 6. COVID-19 has been a career killer, folks, for real. For real. You feel me? Oh! Inflation stories have stayed steady in recent news because COVID-19 is knocking people off the job because they don't want to get vaccinated. Now, COVID-19 and other variants have this story staying in the headlines. The U.S. economy remains in the spotlight as the world watches and follows. Now, by shifting the shutdown strategy and carrying on with business as usual, some people have found a voice in standing up for their right to choose. So it's not about civil rights anymore. It's about COVID-19 rights and the right to say, I don't want no vaccine mandate. I'm going to work. You ain't gonna do nothing about it. They ain't gonna touch me. Or they gonna be marching on Washington. COVID-19 has created a different kind of environment, folks. You have people fighting for basic rights to choose, and you have people giving in to mandates. That means they just want to go to work and make the money. They don't care what they put in them. Now, of all these factors that are changing how we do things, they're changing how the United States economy operates. This is all these factors all into one. Now, either way, COVID-19 has been a career killer. That's why story number 6 almost made it to the top 2 this week. Story number 7 of the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Jesse Jackson. Ooh. Martin Luther King. Ooh. Story number 7. Facts will define what is happening between Democrats and Republicans in the field of voting. Only facts will solve this, folks. Facts that We have to get it together when it comes to voting. Now, after a huge filibuster involving Chuck Schumer and a stale speech from Joe Biden that made some national headlines this week, some people are still not up to date on what is actually taking place in the voting aisle. So let me school you on this. Now, the details surrounding this story are not really about voter suppression at all, nor are the details really about receiving refreshments while in the line to vote. Now, the real facts lie in the field of voter awareness and how candidates seem to unfairly mobilize and alter the vote by what they're calling using people as pawns, who some people don't even have a clue what is actually happening. This has been going on for a long time, probably since before the 90s. Voter awareness is everything. Now, elites see this as a flaw in the American voting process. Now, the gathering votes from people who are lacking awareness when it comes to real issues seems to be the real topic of discussion in this still developing story. That's why story number 7 made it to the top 2 this week. Big hit. Story number 8 at the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week. I have a dream that one day Brian K. West will be telling a story. And I've been to the mountaintop. I have a dream today. Something is happening in the education arena. I have a dream that people will learn and read education. If only they knew. The education stories have to stay alive, folks, due to the current state of affairs taking place affecting the learning environment. Educators have been complaining about lack of student preparedness period. Now, they've also been complaining about learning conditions and in and out of the classroom. It means at home as well. Now, they have also been complaining about the quality of their students' desire to learn. Now, this story remains in circulation because this could be a huge problem if students are not taught properly. Education plays a huge part in the advancement of any civilization, including Americans. Now, Chicago schools have been in multiple headlines because even with aid money, they've remained in limbo. Some of them have even been closed. And that's why Stern and Rate made it to the top this week, because I would have known nothing about Dr. King if it was not for education, or I wouldn't know anything about civil rights, because I was a dumb little kid who didn't know nothing about the world, but I got a little taste of reality when I had to join hands with my white and black and Puerto Rican and Latino and Mexican, all Asian brothers and sisters in class, and I had to learn about African American history, about Dr. King. Whew, we should overcome someday, folks. Here they are. Well, if we haven't already, there's peace in my heart. Well, folks, those are our top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week, local and international. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I'd like to thank all the news outlets, the media, the people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just the mediator, the man in the middle. If you want to show us some support, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program. Thank you so much for tuning into the media this week, folks. I will be back next week looking through over 200 or more stories just for you. And remember, keep the dream alive. Have a good week, everybody. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is